All praise, all glory, all honor is most certainly due to the Most High, God of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Peace to you in the name of his Son, Jesus. I count it truly a blessing each and every time that I can come before you to preach the word of God, and never do I count it as a small thing or a light thing to do so. Praise his name today, and give my tardiness, brothers and sisters. I just want to remind you that we are officially opening up on this Sabbath coming up in 5925 West 25th Avenue, Gary, Indiana, 46404. It's right off the expressway. That's 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will be having our service. I was up there today and actually just came from there. It's looking real nice, and we're thankful to the Lord for allowing us to have a permanent home. We are truly grateful. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to get right into today's lesson. And it's simply titled, Israel Did Not Return in 1948. You know, that is the common narrative that some way God's chosen people have returned unto the land. But now you have people who are occupying that land. And when you look at the history of that, that was based on Zionism, okay? It wasn't even the first choice of those so-called Jews who wanted to return. But, you know, after World War II and what took place with what was called a Holocaust, you had those nations who pushed for that. I mean, and that's how you got that. So you had some converts to a particular faith system that took upon the identity of another people who they got the faith system from, and then now they're occupying the land. Okay, see, this is where Edom is. Okay, Edom is in the land right now. Okay, let's start off in the book of Obadiah, and I just want to read something here in Obadiah, which is a book. It's a very short book. It's one chapter. But it says something here in Obadiah, the 15th verse. It says, for the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head. For as ye have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Yea, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau, which is Edom, for stubble. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken it. He says, and they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau, and they of the plain, the Philistines, and they shall possess the fields of Ephraim, and the fields of Samaria, and Benjamin shall possess Gilead. He goes on to say in verse 21, and Savior shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be the Lord. See, it's going to come a time when judgment is coming for this. Let's go to Revelation, the 8th chapter. Excuse me, Revelation, the 3rd chapter. I said 8th chapter. Revelation, the 3rd chapter. Let's read something here. Because you have a people perpetrating a fraud. Okay, the whole thing is based on a lie. And when it's all said and done, it's going to fall like a house of cards. This is Revelation, the 3rd chapter. We're going to pick it up at verse 9. He says, behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Again, you have some people perpetrating the fraud. Revelation, the 2nd chapter, in verse 9. Who are they going to bow down to? And it's all said, none of the true Israelites. Where the true Israelites now? We're going to find out in a second, but they are not in the land. You have some in Demona. You have some who make that claim they came from Ethiopia, Beta Israel, but you don't have the people who dominate that area. They are not God's chosen people. We're going to find out what happened to God's chosen people. But he's telling you here about these people perpetrating a fraud, and he calls it blasphemy. He says, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. So now he's saying the true Israelites. He said, I know thy works and poverty, but thou art rich. How are you rich? You rich in what was given unto Israel. What was given unto Israel? The oracles of God, his laws, statutes, commandments, judgments. That's your wisdom in the sight of the nations, as I dealt with on Monday. But he says, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Again, you have some people perpetrating a fraud, and this has been their objective for a long time. Let's go to Psalms. Let's go to Psalms, the 83rd division. Psalms 83 and verse 1. Here the psalmist writes in verse 1, keep not thou silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. He says, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. So now they've come together. These heathen nations, they've come together and they said something. What did they say? They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation. Who was them? Israel. When you read about the accounts of what Edom did, when Israel was going into captivity in various times and they were overtaken, Edom rejoiced. You could even read about how when Moses led the people by the power of God, he led them out of Egypt. And they wanted to pass through the Edomites' land, and they wouldn't allow it. These are the same ones, or amongst the ones that have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. But they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. So who wants to cut them off? Starts off the tabernacles of Edom. That's who. And he says others. But then what have they done in verse 12? It says, who said, let us take ourselves the houses of God in possession. And that's what they've done. That's what they've done in going back into that land. But we're going to find out that Israel didn't return to that land in 1948. We're going to find out through prophecy that that's not even possible. It's a big fraud. And these people are getting money from the nations of the earth, of the world. This nation supports them with billions of dollars a year. This president just determined, hey, Jerusalem we're going to recognize that as the capital, right? But let's see where Israel is. This is Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. We're going to read just one verse here. Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. And let's find out where Israel is. It says, first of all, well, I'm going to read a couple verses here. Chapter 28 and verse 63. It says, and it shall come to pass that as the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good. Now he's talking to his people, right? It says, and to multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you, and to bring you to naught or nothing, and ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. Now you're going to be taken off of the land. Now why was Israel taken off the land? Because of sin. Then it says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Now he tells them this while they're in the wilderness. They experienced a mighty deliverance, but he tells them as a people, you're going to be scattered. This is before they even go into the promised land. He said, you're going to be scattered throughout all the earth. And you're going to be worshiping falsely wherever you're at. Okay? And when you read these other curses, you find out that Israel is on the bottom. They're not on the top. See, the ones that call themselves the Jew today is on top. They run Hollywood. They run the financial institutions. They are the top dogs surrounded by their enemies. Per capita, they're the richest group. Look at the Nobel Prize laureates and see where they come from. Look at the high execs in the media and see where they come from. Israel's on the bottom, no, the true Israelite. But this is verse 68. It says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Now, Egypt represents bondage. So it says you're going into bondage by way of slave ships. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So where is Israel? They were scattered through the diaspora. And it wasn't like let's go, we're gonna go and get on a cruise ship and go somewhere. They got on a ship, all right, a slave ship. They were taken. Now, how did they end up on those slave ships? Because when Titus and the Romans ransacked Jerusalem, that was the end of Israel as a nation, totally. They had come back during the days of Ezra and Nehemiah after Babylonian captivity. The 10 tribes that had been gone or had already been taken in the days of the Assyrian captivity, 721, 722. So now, after 70 AD, that was it. Israel went deep into the interior of Africa, made settlements, settled there, and were susceptible to being sold during the transatlantic slave trade. They were dragged to slave castles on the shores of West Africa, taken from these places into Europe, into North, Central, and South America, even places as far as Asia. They were scattered all over the diaspora. All right, all over the world. So that's where Israel is. That's where they're at. So Israel, again, they say they haven't gone back yet. They haven't gone back. This is where Israel is located. And not only that, but let's go to Deuteronomy 32nd chapter. And we're going to read one verse here, verse 26. Because Israel as a nation lost their identity. It says, I said in Deuteronomy 32 and 26, I said I would scatter them in the corners. Now we read about that scattering in Deuteronomy 28. But then he says, I will make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. So now you've forgotten your identity. Okay, it has been stripped. Now let's go to Matthew the 24th chapter. Because we want to find out, brothers and sisters, when Israel is going into the promised land, when they're going to be regathered. Matthew 24. And notice, I said Israel. I didn't say the Jews. Because when you read the Bible, when you read the scriptures, it's not talking about one tribe. Why are they saying Jews? Why are they saying Israelis? Because they are not actually the people. Not by blood. These are not the actual people. But they've tried to, even you see this in Christendom, Christian evangelicals, even who support Israel or the Israelis, they surely don't support Negroes who are the true Jews, who are the true Israelites, but they support them in everything that they do. In everything that they do. And they put forth that same false narrative that some kind of way Israel has been regathered as a nation. That's not the case. And it happened when? In 1948. That's not it. That's not the case. When is Israel going to be regathered? They haven't been regathered yet. This is Matthew, the 24th chapter, and we're going to pick it up at verse 29. Because at verse 3, actually, it says, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? So now they asked him about the end of the world and the sign of his coming. And he tells them when he's coming back. This is verse 29. He says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. This is the sign that you consistently see that is showing you the second coming of the Messiah. Okay, so let's go to let's keep reading here. Let's keep reading here. This is verse 29. It says immediately after the tribulation, that's great tribulation. So this, also that the Lord doesn't return prior to the great tribulation or rapture you off anywhere. That's not in the Bible. You can misinterpret some things, but that's not conceptually in the Bible. That he's going to come saving you and take you off to heaven. The Bible tells you no man is going to heaven. But then it says, and the moon shall not give a light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. They shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. All right, so now he's coming back, and they're going to mourn because he's coming back in wrath. He's coming back in flame and fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God and not obey not his gospel. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. Okay, so let's read verse 31, because it says, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Who is elect? The children of Israel. And he's going to gather them then. That's when Israel's going back into the land as a nation, not in 1948. That wasn't prophecy in the sense that the true Israelite was going back into the land. Let's go to Leviticus, the 25th chapter, and see the significance in one instance where it talks about this regathering, a gathering of people. This is Leviticus, the 25th chapter, and verse 9. It says, then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall ye make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. All right. So now this was the time of Jubilee. Okay. And it says, and ye shall hallow or make sanctified the 50th year and proclaim liberty, which is freedom, throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. That Israel is going to be freed as a nation, and they're going back home. That's what's going to happen. And when you read about the trumpets are a call for the people to show a gathering of people. The gathering of the people was through the trumpet. Okay? But now these are angels blowing these trumpets at this time. So it says in verse 31 of Matthew 24, and he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. He's gathering them not from Egypt, from all over the world. That's why it says from the four winds, from the north, south, east, and west. Okay? Let's go to Isaiah, because Isaiah he told us of this trumpet blast. This is Isaiah, the 27th chapter. Isaiah 27, we're going to pick it up at verse 12. Isaiah 27 and verse 12. It reads, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall beat off from the channel of the river unto the stream of Egypt. And ye shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel. When? And it shall come to pass in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown. So you're going to hear that trumpet. But when is that happening? Immediately after the tribulation. Right? The great tribulation period that has not happened until this day. What's going to set the great tribulation period off? When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place. But then shall be great tribulation. Okay, so it says in verse 13, and it shall come to pass in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown, and they shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, the outcasts in the land of Egypt, and shall worship the Lord in the holy mount at Jerusalem. So Israel is going home at that time. No longer will we be in some stranger's land on the bottom, but rather we will, as a nation, we will be in the Holy Land, not Mecca. He said, but you're going to worship the Lord in the Holy Mount at Jerusalem. Let's go to Ezekiel, the 20th chapter. Because the whole Bible is prophesying of this. This is Ezekiel, the 20th chapter, and we're going to pick it up at verse 33. Ezekiel 20 and verse 33. Okay, and understand something about God. He doesn't have to change. Jesus said Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. He doesn't have to change. There's no variableness in him. If you want to know what God did or is going to do, you should look at what he did. If you want to know what he's going to do, You should look at what he did. So this is Ezekiel, the 20th chapter, in verse 33. It reads, "As I live, saith the Lord God, surely with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out will I rule over you. And I will bring you out from the people." And what he's talking about all these other nations, like we just read in Isaiah 27. Then he says, "And will gather you out of the countries wherein ye are scattered, with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out. And I will bring you where?" It says, "And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face. Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, saith the Lord." So just like he brought Israel out into the wilderness, right, to purge and prepare them to go into the land, so he will do at his second coming. This is what Jesus is going to do at his second coming. Because when you really understand, he was the one that Moses was dealing with in the first place. That's why he tells you in John 8, before Abraham was, I am. That's why they picked up stones and stoned him. They said, you make yourself God, because that's what he told Abraham. He said, Moses said, what shall I tell him your name is? He said, say, I am that I am. So it says in verse 37, and I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant, and I will purge out from among you the rebels, and them that transgress against me. I will bring them forth out of the country where they sojourn. They shall not enter into the land of Israel, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. So he's going to purge out the rebels. See, he does his things the same way. Well, we can just turn the numbers. We're going to read one verse in Numbers 11. Because just like he brought them into the wilderness, and he said, man, he was going to purge out the rebels, same thing he did back here. Right? They made a golden calf. He had to deal with it. They murmured against God. He had to deal with it. This is Numbers 11:1. It says, and when the people complained, it displeased the Lord. And the Lord heard it, and his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burnt among them and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. You see, he had to deal with it because they were constantly going straight. He's going to purge out these rebels. But he said, hey, I went into it. He's going to bring you into the bond of this covenant. See, he made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. See, he's dealing with Israel as a people, but the people that call themselves Israel today are not actually the people. Let's go to Isaiah, the 42nd chapter. Isaiah, the 42nd chapter. See, it didn't happen in 1948. It is yet to happen. So what's happening right now? A fraud. One big fraud. Because where is Israel? This is Isaiah, the 42nd chapter, in verse 22. He said, but this is a people robbed and spoiled. Talking about his people, Israel. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. That's where we are right now. Look in the jails and the prisons, even in this country. They say they are hid in prison houses. They are for prey, and none delivered for spoil, and none say restore. How you going to be 12% of the population and 50% in the prison? You the one on parole. You the one in violation of your probation. You the one that cop 30 cops playing drugs on. So like you the one getting football sentences. You getting all these years. You'll get 100 years. This is verse 24, but he tells you why this took place. Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. And that's how we got cast into slavery in the first place. And it's time to turn back to him. That's why Moses talking about the blessing and the curse. You're going to call it to mind even in the last days. You're going to turn back to him with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. But let's go right down to chapter 43. We pick it up at verse 6. Or verse 1. Because your redemption is coming. It says in verse 1, but now thus saith the Lord that created thee, O Jacob, and he that formed thee, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name, thou art mine. See, the name we have of Israel, that was God's name, Israel. It says, when thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. He says, for I am the Lord thy God, the Holy One of Israel. thy Savior. I gave Egypt for thy ransom, Ethiopia and Seba for thee. Okay. That's what he did for his people. It says, since thou wast precious in my sight, thou hast been honored, but I have loved thee. Therefore, I will give men for thee and people for thy life. Fear not, for I am with thee. And then he says something, and he says, I will bring thy seed from the east and gather thee from the west. Okay, so this didn't take place yet. It's going to take place. And where is Israel? Scattered all over in the diaspora. He says, I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from far and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Even every one that is called by my name, for I have created him for my glory. I have formed him. Yea, I have made him. See, he's going to gather his people from all over the world. But when, again, at his second coming, last place, Jeremiah, the 16th chapter. Didn't happen yet. And you're going to talk about a real deliverance at this time. We take this downtrodden people and brings them back into nationhood, gather them as a people. But when? It didn't happen yet, not in 1948. This is Jeremiah, the 16th chapter, verse 14. It said, therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. They still talk about that today, right? He said, but they're not going to talk about that anymore. Let's see what they're going to talk about. Verse 15, but the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands whither he had driven them. And I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. Some will say, well, see, that happened in 1948. They came from all over. But where was Israel in the first place? Israel went into slavery. The true Israelite went into slavery by way of slave ships. What does the Messiah say? Mashiach tells us that, hey, he's not coming back to gather his people until immediately after the Great Tribulation. So it says, but the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands whither he had driven them, and I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. Behold, I will send for many fishers, saith the Lord, and they shall fish them. And after I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks. What is he talking about? He's talking about him just be gathering his people from all over. Then it says something in verse 19. O Lord, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction, the Gentiles shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth and shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, and things where there is no profit. Wherein there is no profit. There's going to be this regathering, and it's going to come at his second coming. That's when he's regathering his people, bringing them into the land. Didn't happen in 1948. Couldn't have happened in 1948. And brothers and sisters, I want to thank you for listening. It's always my prayer that you will edify.